Hey, everyone. How's it going, guys? Nicholas, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, you good?
Yeah, doing good, doing good. It's always fun to come on these and just to kind of go through these reports, see what people have come up with, and it's just very cool.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Looking forward to it.
All right. So yeah, guys, let us know if you already have maybe your favorite. Maybe it's gonna be the top five, maybe not. Who knows? But if you send in your favorites, we can look at them and maybe do a separate category at some point of time. It's the community's favorite. There's always option to include something more. But yeah, so for those of you who are new, I'm going to tell you what this is all about. For those who've been here, you already know the drill, right? So what today is all about is we're going through this month's challenge for Onyx Data. And what we're doing today is specifically going to the top five submissions that have been evaluated by the judges. And we're going to be announcing a winner at the end. What this session is really all about is just going through the reports and giving you our feedback on them, things that we like, things that we think might have been done a little bit differently, what might have been improved, and so forth, right? The main idea about this is basically to give you different opinions and different insights on what people are looking for when they're viewing reports, right? It's not to say that, hey, whatever we say is the only golden rule and it should always be applied and nothing left to the or the right, right? No, this is just to give you ideas on how people are perceiving different information with different visuals and everything, right? So different backgrounds, different requirements, all those things are taken into consideration. And I think Nicholas can probably agree with me on this one that it's never really as simple as you think it is because every customer is very different. One might like one
Mm.
thing, whereas the other one's going to be like, nah, try to keep away from that.
Yeah, yeah. A lot. Like you said, a lot of it is about perception,
Yeah,
personal preference. So yeah, how people perceive things. Yeah. I mean, we've both worked with lots of clients, and yeah, one client will want a certain thing one way, and another client will want it a completely different way, and that may go against your own perception and your own biases, and you might want to push back against that, and that's fine.
yeah, absolutely. We recently had a discussion as well with Federico. He mentioned like he doesn't like scattered charts just because he doesn't know a very good way on how to visualize them and everything, right?
Mm.
Whereas you can see other people like, no, I want to have scatter plot there, scatter plot there, and that's gonna be just fine.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
all about how you just perceive information. Oh, and actually, I think one of the most common things is what are you used to seeing? Because
Mm.
breaking that change is, I think, the most difficult part. Just breaking a habit of knowing, okay, there's going to be a column chart there, there's going to be a donut chart there. Introducing something new is always difficult because then you kind of have to first of all try to see how they perceive it on the very first interaction, whether it's good or bad, or whether it requires additional training. Or so it's a lot of moving parts to a report. I would say.
Yeah, you can use that to your advantage sometimes though, because there is like a. I think we all know there's kind of there's a standard layout, isn't there, for Power
Yeah.
BI reports? You have your KPIs at the top, and then your supporting charts below it, et cetera, and maybe a table, right? But so and there are norms for a reason because it's best practice. But sometimes you can break those norms and use it to your advantage. And what I mean by that is if you do something the user's not expecting because you want to draw attention to it, then that's a good way to draw attention to it. They may open up report after report and it's all the same layout, but
Hmm.
then you want to highlight something important in a report, then break that norm then, and they'll be like, oh, hang on a minute, what's going on here? I'll better look at that then. So you can use that to your advantage.
Oh, absolutely. I know I've done this trick as well where I intentionally broken the chart. And the
Mm.
reason for that is because when the chart was working, I was asking comments and that looks good, everything's okay. But once I broke it, suddenly people were like, "Oh, we could actually do this and that, and how to improve this thing." So it's all
Yeah,
about
no,
what you're trying to get from that communication.
yeah, no, that's clever. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so without further ado, I think we're gonna go into the top five. But before we do that, we already talked with Nicholas. You've seen Nicholas talking and everything, right? So, but before we go into the reports and the challenge itself, Nicholas, a few words about yourself and how you got here, maybe.
Yeah, so I'm Nicholas Lea-Trengrouse, or Nick for short, based in the UK. My full-time job is head of data and AI and business intelligence, but I chop the business intelligence bit off because it's too long of a title otherwise. And that's for a consultancy in the UK that works primarily with Microsoft. So we work with lots of different clients around the UK on Microsoft products. So Power BI, Fabric, and we have a big area in Dynamics as well. So that's my full time job. My kind of side stuff, let's call it, is I post on LinkedIn a lot, probably too much. I've been accused of spamming on LinkedIn before because I post all the time. I can't help it. I'm sorry. I call my self-titled Power BI disruptor because I try to break those norms and have a big focus on UI and UX and usability, etc., in reports. Um, and then I also have the Slice of BI podcast that I host with David. So some of you might have seen that posted on LinkedIn. If not, we've got another episode coming up next week. We had to cancel yesterday's because I was feeling a bit under the weather. Boo hoo. So we had to cancel yesterday's, but we're back next week with another guest. So keep an eye out for that one. But yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, we've all been there, right? As much as we would love to do everything, sometimes when it comes to you and you can become under the weather, it's like, as much as I would love to do it, just it's not the day.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to let stuff go, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What we gonna do now is go ahead and share the screen. And let's go through the reports. So making sure the right screen is shared. You know, mistakes might happen as well. It is what it is. I think at this point it's one of the traditional questions as soon as you get into a call. All right, can everybody see the screen? All good? Yeah, cool. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, and I still have every single time I do it, I still have that twinge of worry that I'm like sharing my Amazon basket that I was browsing before the meeting or something like that, you know?
It doesn't matter how many times you've done it.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially what I like about this is the one time when you don't feel the stress is the time you realize you're most definitely sharing the wrong thing.
Yeah, yeah, I've done that, and I accidentally shared my Teams chat page, that everybody could see, without realizing, so that was fun, yeah.
So as you can see in this chart.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So let's go into the reports itself. So the first submission that has gotten itself into the top five is going to come from Bimshankar Shinde. So congratulations to you. Let's open up the report and take a closer look at it. Now, what I've forgotten to done is pre-open all of these, but what I usually do is just this is just also one quick tip, right? Whenever you have embedded reports on website, there's two views that you essentially have for them. This is sort of called a preview, whereas the other option is you can open up actually the full screen view just for the report, right? So what I usually do is I try to see if it is an embedded window or if it's the actual full screen version. The reason for that is because Power BI sometimes likes to fiddle with the scaling of things, as you can see, for example, right
Mm,
here. So having it on full screen actually allows you to have a better experience because sometimes the scaling gets kind of broken and then some characters are getting cut off or something like that.
yeah,
So, but yeah, this is the report. What I noticed first about this, as much as I love kind of spark lines or columns or something in the cards, there's one thing that I usually try to avoid as a plague, basically, right? And that is allowing the user to actually interact with the chart. And there's a particular reason for that. Once you do that, if you have the same chart or the same principle reused in multiple places, what's going to happen is you're going to leave it with, like in this case, just a single column. It just looks weird,
yeah,
right? So alternatively, you can do this and allow cross interactions between the charts, but then you also have to think of a creative way on how to, for example, highlight that selected part on the other chart without removing everything. Because the last thing you want to do is kind of create a situation where the user clicks on something and then suddenly something disappears and be like, what do I do?
yeah, yeah. So
so,
with
th-
the
so
with
that's
the
yeah.
with the Zoom, I've not actually used the Zoom charts visuals. Does it have the same functionality where you can edit interactions and turn it off between the different visuals? Does it have that same functionality?
So for us, what we did is we actually have two different lines of visuals. We have Pro line, which uses filter as the default capability. And then we
Yeah.
have a so-called pin version, which uses selection as the default capability. The main reason why we created two separate instances is because Power BI by design doesn't allow to pin visuals that filter to a dashboard and services.
Okay.
And when you're creating a visual, you have to define on a code level whether it's using filtering or highlighting as its main capability. So we had to completely separate two different variations. And the other
Mm.
reason is we wanted the user to have a very, very simple way of cross filtering. So by allowing us to use the filtering capability as the primary one, what it allows me to do is without holding down control or anything, right? I can just click on one chart, sends out one filter, click on something else, and that creates a combination straight away. So you don't
Okay.
have to
Yeah.
know about holding down control, for example.
Yeah. Clever.
So
Yeah.
it's like everything else, right? It has its pros, it has its cons. It's really all about playing and figuring out what works best.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose one quick
Yeah, go ahead.
tip or quick fix that you could do to prevent people being able to interact with those charts is to just put a transparent rectangle over the top.
Yeah.
And then you can't click on it because the rectangle's blocking it off. But simple fix maybe.
Yeah, it's either that or you disable the cross filtering between just these
Yeah.
two elements, but then it also becomes kind of weird that I can select something, but then nothing really happens here. And that's why I'm saying when you do this, you have to also think about, okay, how is it going to implicate everything else on the report page?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But there's one thing that I really liked about this approach. So right here we can see these little, I think these are dashes, but let's call them dots, right? Doesn't really matter. With this amount of pixels doesn't really matter. So what I notice here, and this is what I'm grateful for, is that the author actually paid attention to this. And if I'm using all the years, it's actually not giving me any comparison values. Only when I select a particular year do I get a comparison value. And I think it's a small little touch, but it's a very nice touch. Because what happens a lot of these cases is people create comparison values versus something, and they just, we talked about this as well, right? They just leave a number, and then you're
Mm.
looking at it. Okay, I have a change. Is it against the whole year, a certain period, the last month? What is it?
Yeah.
And without a full reference, it kind of breaks the immersion. So this is a very nice little touch, I would say.
Yeah. I think a thing there is in those KPIs though, you've got your if I'm reading it correctly, and correct me if I am wrong, but you got your value. So is it we're in 24 and it's versus 23. Yeah, ignore me
Yeah,
then. That's correct. Okay. Yeah.
yeah. I would probably extend it and just have a full have a full naming like 24 versus 23.
Yeah.
But at least this is better than not having any comparison.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of the things. The other thing that I like about is the overall feeling of the report itself. So for example, the consistency. You created two different variations of the value. So for example, we're going with dollars and tens of thousands in some cases, or just regular thousands. Some's going to hundreds. If you would use the similar or the same y-axis for it, just would look weird. So what you're essentially
Mm.
doing is just having a value label pushed to the down to the bottom of the chart, and it's consistent across all the charts, right? So it's not going up and down all across the board. You know where to look for things, and it's very important for end users. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So that's a very
Yeah.
nice little touch. Regarding this one, so the only thing that actually caught me off guard here, I liked this chart, but there's one thing that I kind of managed to break from it. And this is the reason why I always tell you to play around with every slicer, every combination, right? If I select something on a donut chart, everything seems good. It cross filters information, not breaking anything. So far, so good, right? But if I have pre selected 2024 and I select a particular um, group of users, suddenly, I think it was the correct one. Of course, now it's not going to break, right? Because why not make me look like a fool? Oh, there we go. So suddenly, churn rate just completely disappears.
Oh yeah.
If I select the other group, I would expect, okay, then the churn is here, right? It probably means
Mm.
that. No, it just changes the timeline, but again, churn is not here. However, if I have nothing selected, which basically means I have selected both of them, I have churn rate. So where's the churn coming from?
Mm.
But it's one of the things. I get it, right? You can't always account for every single situation. You guys are still learning about Power BI and a lot of data cleaning things and everything. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's just one of the reasons why every single time every report developer is actually going to tell you play around with what you have created.
Yeah.
You might
Yeah.
think that everything is going to work, but trust me, sometimes the cases you come across is just like, What?
Yeah.
Doesn't make
And
any
you
sense."
and you want to test it with sort of a between 3 and 5 users.
Yeah.
So Jacob Nielsen is one of the most cited UX designers and talks about testing of UX and experiences a lot, right? Says
Hmm.
that between sort of 3 and 5 users is kind of the sweet spot, because once you get past 5 users, it's kind of diminishing returns, right? So
Yeah,
at
it's
that
gonna be all
5
over the
user
place.
point, yeah, at that 5 user point, they're going to spot about 80% of issues. And when you work with those users, you want to tell them, I want you to try and break it. So think of all the different business scenarios that you can think of, and then replicate them in this. So I want to know what was my membership type for 2024 by a certain country, split
Hmm.
by membership type, right? Click all of those buttons. You want to try and break it. Yeah. That's so and you as a developer, you either you're not going to spot this stuff because you don't have the time, because you're developing other reports or you're doing data modeling or whatever. Okay, but we also have an inbuilt bias towards what we build as well, and we're a bit reluctant to find when it's broken because we don't want it to be broken. We want
Yeah.
it to be perfect. So we'll click a few buttons and we'll go, oh yeah, that works, I'm a really good developer. But actually, when your users begin to use it and they find these little quirks and stuff that you didn't realize, that kind of breaks trust in the report as well. So
Hmm.
make sure you're testing it with your users as well.
Absolutely. I think the other part of that bias is that just you know exactly what to click and what to expect
Yeah,
from it. Whereas if you
yeah,
give it to somebody else who doesn't have any clue, he's just gonna randomly start clicking, and that's when things just go berserk.
yeah, yeah. And of course, those like if there are quirks built into it or workarounds, you know about them because, like you said, you've built them,
Yeah.
so you know they're there, but your users don't. So
Yeah, so you're gonna get an actual feedback on, okay, does it actually make sense to do something? For you, it
yeah,
makes sense because you built it, right? You know what it's gonna
absolutely, yeah,
do.
yeah,
For them, it's just like, what the hell did just happen?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, what else? Geo engagement analysis. This page was okay. The only thing that I would mention here, and this was actually a lot more common than it usually is, whenever you have field parameters, I love field parameters. It gives you a lot of flexibility, right? Within the same space, you can switch between different metrics. So that's all good. But the one thing you have to always be cautious about is if you have a field parameter, think about the slicer and how it's allowed to be selected. Like, for example, in this case, since we're talking about the value, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for user to allow to have both of them at the same time
Mm.
because it's only going to be displaying the first one. So the way on how you would treat this is quite simple. Under slicer selections, you just force single selection. That's it. It's either one or the other. And then the user cannot accidentally or intentionally hold down control like I did. I know. I'm a bad one. I broke it on purpose, but that's what I do. But you're not allowing him to do this because at this point, what am I seeing? In theory, I know what I'm seeing, right? But if it both would be a numerical value instead of a percentage and numerical, it would raise a lot of questions. So try to avoid those situations. Here, I would probably use a legend instead of separate elements. The reason for
I
this
don't.
is because, yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
I think that the multi-access and single access, do those work for you? Because they don't work, so I think they are meant to be clickable, but they're not
I
working.
see. That's the thing. I think that's a legend item.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, right, okay. So to me, that looks like buttons. So this is
Exactly.
a this is a UX theory called affordance, right? So if things look like they're clickable, people will try and click them, and that's exactly what I kept doing. Kept trying to click those, and nothing was happening. So I was a bit confused.
Yep. And
Yeah,
the one reason why this is happening as well is because you have buttons right here. Sure, the font color changes, but the same shape, maybe the size changes a little bit, but it looks and feels like a button, but it's
yeah,
not a button.
yeah, yeah. I'd say one more thing on that page
Yep, going back.
is because you've got, I think it was the 4 KPI. Yeah, so you've got like KPIs across the top along the other 2 pages, so members and revenue and usage and churn. But then you
Hmm.
just got this big blank empty space. So you need to, it's a bit, it kind of breaks the flow a bit. If I was to open it, I'm like, well, why is that empty space there? Why isn't it being utilized? So I don't know, either expand the KPI cards that are in there and maybe add some additional context, like month over month changes, something like that, or if there is another KPI card that can be created, that's going to provide value. Don't just shove one in there to fill the space. It needs to give value. Then you should really
Yeah,
be filling in that space. Yeah.
it's usually the fine line between having too many KPIs and too little KPIs.
Mm,
It's
mm,
in this case, it's just to fill the space itself
yeah.
or
Yeah.
separate them even more. Because in this case, I think the easiest one would be just the churn rate itself. You already have a visual that kind of explains it, so give me like an average churn rate.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah.
And then afterwards use the churn. I think this one's good. The only thing about this one on the table is if I select something on a scatter plot, try to always create an exception case for blank values. Blank is not the same as zero. It's not the same as a very low value. It just means that there's no data. So typically you want to kind of have them differently colored or just leave them white, for example.
Mm.
But it's a preference. It's what I would have done at least.
Yeah. I would say on that middle chart that the variance in colors needs to the contrast is too close together, needs to be more variance. So much darker blue, much lighter blue, and then a middle
Hmm.
color. And then if you go for a much darker blue, obviously the text, the blacks, probably again you can have contrast issues there and it won't be
Yeah.
very readable. So you could introduce conditional formatting to say if it's above a certain value, make it white, make that text white, otherwise it's black or something like that. So you could
Yeah,
control it that way. Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, there's bits and pieces that you can improve in every single report. So right, don't get too offended by our comments here. But overall, like we went through this, right? So it's in the top five. It means that it's a good report. It's just there's always little bits and pieces that we like to discuss and talk about, mainly so you have ideas on what to improve upon. Otherwise, if you wouldn't have anything to improve upon, well, then you're better than even us. So
Yeah.
what are you even talking about at that point, right? I'm going to quickly open up the report whilst it's loading. And then I'm going to say who the author is for this one. So the second report that has gotten into top five comes actually from Crystal. Crystal, congratulations. The second challenge this month, second report in the top five. So going strong. All right. So for this one, um, the first feeling that I have for it is I just feel that it's a little bit too much. I think the report is structured okay, but there's just too many elements on the initial view of the report.
Mm.
And the reason why I think this can cause an issue down the road is because if at the entry point I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, I'm afraid to go further.
Yeah, I agree. Like the year and month slices, either I would potentially move those into maybe like a slicer panel, and then you're freeing up some space then. And then
Hmm.
your two donut charts, you can move those over, make them a bit bigger, or you could introduce some more KPI cards, freeing up some space, making it not as busy. The the membership growth over time chart at the bottom is confusing to me. Like that I think that should just be a line chart showing growth over time, or a bar chart. Like I'm not really sure what there is an x-axis there, I think, but I'm not sure what
Yeah,
it's really because it's so. I think that is text right at the bottom, but it's tiny text. I think so. I think it's every day, isn't it? So I think you need
yeah.
to aggregate that to a yearly, quarterly, monthly level, and then you can okay. So you can drill in and out of it like that. But when it's in that all the way zoomed out view, that's quite overwhelming and confusing.
Definitely. I think it's just one of those cases where I get it that you always want to be granular, but sometimes too granular is too granular, right? You're not
Mm,
getting a lot of information from this, and it's just all over the place. So, and the reason why this is happening is actually quite simple as well. So, what the author did here is she used a combo visual. Combo visual is meant for categorical data.
mm,
So when you pass in a date, even though you pass it as just a date itself, which native visuals handle as a continuous value, right?
yeah.
Combo specifically still treats it as a category. So every
Oh,
unique
okay.
combination
Yeah.
is a unique column. So
Yeah.
if it would be switched down to a timeline, timeline now works with a continuous axis. So with this one, I can easily switch and say, hey, I want to be on a yearly view, quarterly view, and so forth. I can drill down and so forth. So this would provide a lot more sense because the second thing
Yeah.
it does is even though you can, of course, change the format of the date, what the timeline does differently is, let's say if I switch to months, you can see it creates that cascading principle of value of the labels on the x-axis.
Mm.
So you still understand where you are. Sure, I don't see every single little one of them, but it gives me an overall feeling of where I am right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So in a way, I'd say this is just an unfortunate oversight, just the wrong chart type itself.
Yeah.
Switching it, as you can see, it gives exactly the same result visually on a chart level because it's all in monthly granularity. But when it
Mm.
comes to the way you explore it, two different behaviors basically.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. What else for this one? I think the biggest issue that I had with this overall was because everything was on dark theme. I like dark themes. That's it's one of the controversial things, right? A lot of people like light themes. I like dark themes, but I think the contrast on this one was a little bit too intense. What I mean by this, you have the very light blue, you have the white right here. So as soon as I start to drill down, we also have the inner reference layer. So now the white becomes something that kind of is stuck as a sore pin in my eye because it's on top of
Okay.
it.
So I
And
actually
then,
disagree. I
yeah,
like it.
okay.
I think
See?
the contrast. Yeah, that's yeah. I think the contrast. Me personally, I think the contrast is good because I think with well, I've seen it with dark mode reports.
Mhm.
Uh, it's almost like sometimes they look like they're a nightclub, like with
Yeah,
fluorescent
yeah.
colors all over the place. And I know if I look at it for too long, I start to feel a bit nauseous, because it's just too
Mhm.
in your face and stuff. And I think that for me, and maybe it's my personal preference, but I quite like the contrast. It's quite for a dark mode report. It's quite calm and for me easy on the eye. So, but it's interesting. But for you, it's the opposite. Like that white is like in your face.
Yeah. I know. Maybe it's just me, right? It's just one of those things that. And see, this is what we talk about when we say about it. Pay attention to the customer, right? Because if you
Mm.
would give this to me, I would be very dissatisfied.
Okay. Yeah. 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 So I'd be all right with it. Yeah.
See, yeah. So somewhere in the middle is the right one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I think it's a very well made report in the sense that cross chart filtering is working very well. A few little details, like for example, personal training, uses, so on and so forth. Try to avoid keeping these very technical terms of true, false, and so forth. Make it
Mm.
more human.
Mm.
Does the
Yeah.
like uses sauna? Yes, no. Uses personal training? Yes, no. Simple, because it's the same thing, but it's just more human way on how to perceive that information.
Yeah.
We get it, right? Because we're writing DAX measures and everything. You could also write one and zero, and I would understand it quite well. But for an average user, it just creates something that they have to think about again.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. I think as well. One more point I'd make is in the first card.
Yeah.
You've got like the spark line,
Hmm.
but I don't know what period that is. Is that I'm going to guess it's a month, but I'm not really. I don't know. So it's not really giving me a huge amount of value, really.
True. I don't even know. Let's see if I select a year. It's probably year on. Oh, now we have it. Come on. Tooltip.
Yeah, not sure. It looks
Okay.
like it might be daily then or something, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a
I think
daily.
what it's doing is it's a monthly view of days, but I'm going to guess it's aggregating everything. So this what we're seeing now is
Yeah.
the aggregation of all years and all months
All months
on
on a
that
31
spark
day
line.
basis, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Okay. But yeah, definitely agree on that one. If you have these sort of elements, you need to somehow connect the dots for the user. Okay, what am I currently looking at?
mm,
Right?
mm,
Because if at some point somebody decides to, if you would enable also like a drill up and suddenly this is a yearly view, again, what am I looking at? But
yeah,
these are just bits and pieces, right? It's not groundbreaking. Sure, you can fix that. But yeah, let's go to the next one. So revenue analysis. This one's fine. Cumulative values are very common to showcase, but again, the granularity is just an overkill for me. Like I can zoom in, that's fine, but seeing this as an entry point, we usually call them hedgehogs, right? You can see that things are happening. We're heartbeat charts.
yeah,
You see things happening, but it doesn't really provide you with a lot of context. So
yeah,
the entry point is very, very important.
yeah.
Um,
So I think this one as well is and I think it's because of the slices in the top left. It does look very busy.
Hmm.
Um, and one of the principles in user design is called Miller's law, where the average person can only keep kind of 7 items plus or minus 2 things in their brain at one time, and
Yeah.
they'll feel overwhelmed after that. So if we added up all the elements in this page, we're way over that, and it becomes very confusing. So again, I think if you move those slices into a pop-out slicer panel, it just frees up the page a lot more, makes it breathe a lot more, makes it easier to consume. But again, I like the colors, and I like the contrast. I think it works well.
Just to reiterate, right?
Yeah, just reiterate that one.
Yeah, for the slicers, I'd say it's always kind of trying to figure out what's the best approach. Slicer
Yeah,
panels is a great option because it allows you to save a lot of space because you can basically create a new page on top of everything.
yeah,
Alternatively, unless there's a specific reason why you want to showcase these values, I most definitely would go for just a drop down because that way you can point all those slicers in a basically a column right here, right? It wouldn't have all that space taken away, and you could have used that for either the values or add something else. You would have some space to play around with.
yeah.
But yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah,
What
and
else we got?
one very final
Go for
thing
it.
on that page is
Going back.
on the member engagement and value chart in the middle, the
Yep.
combo chart. uh, that line, because it is a line, that should be continuous data, but we're looking at categorical data. So, but you can I'm not sure about in these Zoom charts, but I don't know if you can make that line 0 width, so you just have the dot left,
Yep.
because otherwise that's not how you're meant to use a line chart.
Of course we can, man. Come on. Who do you think we are? This is a line. This is a marker. An outline width. Just put on 0. Okay, now it's a garbage because I had too many data points. But you get the gist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it just adds like a categorical marker instead of like a continuous marker. Yeah.
Yeah. Alternatively, of course, if you don't have too many data points, an alternative for this is instead of using like a typical join type, you actually switch it to a stepped outline.
Mm.
It's not ideal, but it kind of allows at least the user to disassociate the continuation process. Like everything's based on category.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas as soon as you have a typical join, it's like, okay, there's a steady decrease. Whereas in reality,
yeah,
there's no connection between these 2 points.
yeah, yeah,
So, and this is why we're always telling you also to, if you're using different charts or learning about different charts, just read upon the charts itself. There's a lot of information available online where people are going to explain every single element, why to use this, why not to use this, and why to even think about these parts. All right, for this one, check-in time, check-out time, average duration seems good. Average minutes. The only thing that I wasn't a fan of here, I don't think it was even on the other pages. Yeah, on this one, you introduced a new icon which is basically doing the same thing as this. From a way on how it's positioned within a block, I was expecting that it's going to clear just a block, right? And that's one of the principles of association. Since it's part of this group, it's going to clear this group. So what I was playing around with is, okay, I'm going to actually place a slicer here, then I'm going to take the donut chart as an additional filter. I actually don't want to use this anymore, and when I click on this, it clears everything. So
yeah.
if you do this, if you basically create the same element to do the same thing but in different places, first of all, don't do that. Try not to do that. But if you do, if it is part of the group, make sure that it clears that group so it's understandable to the user what just happened. Otherwise, keep it somewhere outside. I'd say in this case, this is just unnecessary. You already have a refresh right here. It does the same exact thing. So keep it simple.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I think the chart that says which days drive the most gym traffic, in the subheading it says membership-wise breakdown of weekly visit patterns and discount type. But I don't think the discount type is actually included in the chart, um, unless it does when you drill down through it.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, yeah, but
But
I
still,
think for users as well, because it is saying which days drive the most gym traffic. So I can see like Wednesday, right? I can see the numbers. I can see the numbers for each of the membership types, but how does that total actually compare to Fridays? Is it more? Is it less? I don't know, because I'd have to add each of those values up individually to find out just instantly which one has the most traffic, which makes it a
Yeah.
bit difficult. Yeah.
And what is done in this case as well is the value labels. What we allow the user to do is to use a property called use total stack values. So it's basically creating a cumulative value going up on a stack.
Mm,
So
mm.
these are the totals. But
Oh, those are
from
actually the totals, right?
those are
Okay.
actually the totals, yeah. But like you said, from like a typical user perspective, I thought that these were separate values.
Yeah, yeah, I did. Yeah.
And the other thing is, it's I'm guessing this is 100% stacked combination because all the columns
Mm,
are exactly the same position, even though the final values are different. If you're trying to highlight a particular day that wins it over the rest of the days, don't make it seem the same importance as everything else.
mm.
There has to be a differentiation between these two. Because
Yeah,
otherwise, if you're just going through the values, like the label and everything, it doesn't necessarily say that Wednesday is the best day. It's just the first day.
yeah.
Sure, I can see the numbers that seem like they're higher than everything else, but I don't know exactly what it means. So you're
Mm,
making me think again.
mm. Yeah, agreed.
But overall, I'd say it's a very good report. Just again, some bits and pieces that you can improve upon to make it easier for the average user to kind of go through. I
Yeah.
usually say this when you're creating these reports, one of the things or the best way on how to test them out is actually the first impression, right? Don't give it to somebody who knows what they're going to be doing here. Just give it to somebody else. Give it to your friend, your mom, your dad, whoever it is, just to kind of play around with it first. What it allows you to see, sure, it's not relevant to the case itself, right? But what it allows you to see is what is the first thing that they notice? Are they actually gravitating towards what you wanted them to notice? Or they're
Mm,
just basically looking at this panel right here, which means that
mm.
probably it has to be, less intrusive in a way. So that's one thing that I
Yep.
usually do.
Yep.
All right, let's open up the report quickly. Come on, full screen. All right, so the next report that has gotten itself into the top five comes from, let's close the embedded view, comes from Besim Chebi. So Besim, congratulations. Let's open up the report and take a closer look at it. Nicholas, you want to go first at this one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of layout, I really like this one. There's consistent spacing between all the visuals around the margins as well. I like the general layout of it. I like the way that you've used space as well. So in the top left hand corner, you've got this visual that you can click between. You've got amenities, attendance, and you can click between the different
Hmm.
elements there without using additional canvas space. So you can go to different analytics just by clicking through, which I really like that. That's really good. Um, I like on the KPI cards as well. So you've got current revenue, you're showing it compared to last month. I think on there though, what would be good in addition, so where you got last month and it's going, it's up 21%. In brackets, put what was the last month value. So you can compare the two then much easier. Um, Revenue and members. I like those charts, but I think you could probably enhance the story there a bit. So, what members. So you got members by age range, but who's driving that revenue and at what membership type? So I'm going to use Federico's was it Federico's favorite chart, scatter chart? He said he
Yep,
likes
yep.
them. Yeah. Okay. So you could use one of those here, right? And you could look, you could then view it by age range or gender or something like that by the amount of revenue they generate, and you could put like a I don't know play axis on the membership type, so you can see who's driving revenue. So if I'm like sitting in marketing, right, and I'm
Hmm.
looking at this, I want to say, well, who should we be targeting for memberships? Well, if my 35 plus age range is predominantly purchasing premium memberships, well then and they're driving a lot of the revenue already, then I probably don't need to target them. But if 18 to 24 are, that we don't have that wider membership base of that age range, and they're all just purchasing the basic membership. Okay, well maybe we can do a targeted campaign towards that demographic of people, and maybe do a discount on the premium membership for people in that age range. I can see that story straight away.
Hmm.
So maybe just enhance that storytelling a bit as well.
Yeah, I'd say it's one of the things that you can play around with. Maybe create something like a switch for the legend if the user wants to split it by different like membership types, or create a field parameter that allows me to switch between them if I want
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
It, it's the same thing as you've done here, but just give a little bit more for this part as well, right? The only thing that I noticed about, not the only thing, but just the one thing that I noticed about this one, and I think it's just an oversight. I hope for it. But as soon as I, for example, select premium, right here, membership type, this is revenue by membership type. If I select premium, which is dark blue, corresponds. Cool.
Mm.
I select standard. Well, let's see which is going to be the lightest. The basic. Basic is going to be light gray. I select basic, blue, but it's actually going to be gray maybe if today it decides to filter.
Ah, yeah.
See? And you already have the colors assigned in the legend right here. You're talking about the exactly same dimension. So if you're using this, use the same coloring right here.
Yeah.
It's a very simple touch, but for the end user, would also just allow him to connect the dots, right? Instead of just having kind of the same thing but differently colored, it's the same color, both sides. I know exactly what I'm looking at.
Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah.
So
Agreed. And
I think
sometimes
it's, yeah. Go ahead.
sometimes you can actually, that kind of color coding can actually replace a legend, freeing up
Yeah,
more space in your chart. So if they'd followed the same coloring on that chart on the left, that almost becomes your legend, and then you don't need a legend within the chart in the middle and freeing up a bit more space for that chart then. um,
yeah,
I think something I like about this as well is there's a sorry, I'm throwing a lot of UX laws and principles about, but there's another one called Jacob's law, where it says that users spend most of their time in other apps using other applications, so make yours look the same. And if you do follow me on LinkedIn, you'll know that something I bang on about a lot is making your Power BI reports not look like Power BI. I think a lot of us can spot a Power BI report off by a million miles, right? We
yeah,
can see it coming because they have a very there's a look about them. I can't put my finger on it exactly, but
yeah.
there's a look about them, and you know what it looks like. Whereas this one, it doesn't look like a Power BI report. This one almost looks like something out of a modern web application, and I really
Mhm.
like that in terms of aesthetics and usability, etc., because it looks like something that I would use. I log into my energy supplier's account, and the data that it gives me, it might well look like this.
Absolutely. And I like also about this one that he actually played around with different variations and different kind of tricks within Power BI. Like for example,
Mm,
this is a nice touch just showcasing me KPIs, right? All good. Don't have any issues with it. You could make them massive, but you decided it's a good approach right here. And what it
mm,
actually allows me to do at the same time is these toggles allow me to focus on one of these groups. So if I want to focus on the drink usage and only focus on the members who have the drinks as part of the subscription, I just toggle it. You can see it's straight away 100% because now I'm looking only at that partition.
yeah,
So I think it's a very nice little touch.
yeah, I like that. Yeah, yeah.
And these sort of little things is one of the things that allow you to kind of disconnect the feeling that this is a Power BI report, right? That is,
Mm,
it's not just an extension of an Excel. It's
yeah,
something
yeah,
completely different. It's an actual live report where things move, they actually cross filter, and it feels like a living organism.
yeah.
But yeah, this touch as well, just allowing using exactly the same space for different types of information, which I think is good because instead of just creating another page just because and trying to kind of squeeze everything in, you decided that okay, this is something that they might want to look into, but this is the main thing. This is just
Mm,
something that they can play around with.
mm,
Um,
mm.
for the map, the only thing that I would have probably done is instead of using the country shape layers, I would have found one for California and only use that because we can see that the data has been pre-filtered only to California.
Yeah,
So, because otherwise, I have this whole massive shape across the whole world. I can even zoom out, but all data is actually only in California. And even if I get too close, okay, I'll get random bubbles in random locations.
yeah. Agreed. Yeah. I'd say I'd make one more observation, and I'm going to
Yep.
throw out another UX principle. Is there's this theory or principle around the paradox of the active user and this is the idea that people don't read manuals, right? They don't read how-tos, they don't do tutorials. Most people just want to start clicking about and
Yep.
doing stuff. Think about when you buy a piece of furniture from IKEA, how many of us actually read the manual? We just go straight ahead and start building it and probably mess it up, right? It's the same when it
Halfway,
comes to stuff.
halfway is the point.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same with software, right? Not many of us will read the manual, we'll just start clicking. So if you can create a experience that supports that, people don't need a manual, well, then you're on to a winner. And I think that this report does that. When I opened it, I knew exactly where to click because we had the sliders, we had the buttons along the top. It was obvious to me that the charts are going to be interactive, so that you kind of lent into that paradox of the active user. I didn't need a manual to use this or some UI tips or anything like that.
Hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, overall, I'd say it's an amazing report. Just like we said, right? Few little bits and pieces, but this is just something that comes with you over time. So
Mhm.
amazing report. Congratulations getting into the top 5. Let's move on to the next one. So the
Yeah.
next report that has gotten itself into the top 5 comes from Mandy Novakov. So congratulations. Let's again open up quickly the report. Do, 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 do. I mean, I have to fill in there somehow, right?
Yeah.
So for this one, as much as like dark themes, right? I think this is a little bit of an overshot when it comes to the coloring. The main reason for that is because it's not necessarily about the color combination in the charts, but it's actually on our charts. One of the things that you can do is you can enable dark theme for tooltips. And I think in this case, it didn't work very well because, well,
Yeah.
if you're using
Yeah.
a
You
dark
can't
theme,
you can't
the,
see some of them at all. Yeah.
exactly. If the
Yeah.
prominent color is black and you have something that tells me what the black part is, I know that it's 37.61, but I have no idea what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the only
And I
place
think
where I can look for it is the legend.
and with the KPIs at the top now they're legible to me. I can read them, but I know by looking at that those the colors in there will have broken accessibility rules for people
Hmm.
with like color blindness or visual impairments because the contrast between the KPI card itself and the values is off. It's wrong. So those should have been set to white. You should have just set
Yeah.
those values to just to pure white, and then the labels maybe one shade below white. Because it's a label, it's a subtext, so maybe one shade below white or above white. But yeah, that there is some contrast issues on this one. Yeah,
Yeah. Especially if you're already doing this right here, right? Sure, this is a lighter shade of black. Gray is lighter shade of black
yeah,
in
yeah,
essence. So keep the same white or just a very light shade of it.
yeah, yeah.
But other than that, I think it's an interesting approach that what you've done here. You've done it, I think, in one of the previous reports as well, where essentially you're creating a box for the total and then separate categories within it. It's a nice little interesting touch. The differences between the periods itself right here at the top, so that's all good. For the rest of these charts, I'd say purely because of how they look, I think it's filled with a white color, or even if it's transparent, but it just
Mm.
feels like something is missing, purely from a visual perspective. At least for me, I
Yeah.
don't know. Is it same for you?
Yeah, now that you've mentioned it, yeah, and I think it might be because the designers used that box approach in the first chart, and then there's like these same boxes but empty in the other charts, but then the last chart is filled.
Yeah,
There's a bit of a disconnect, maybe.
it feels like should it be something in between these two, or
Yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah, I do. I mean, yeah, I like the percentage change between the years. Doesn't leave you guessing what the difference was between them.
Mhm.
Um, I would say an observation. I do like the way at the bottom it's telling us what filters are applied. So right at the bottom in the
Yeah,
bar at the bottom, it's telling us what filters are applied. Again, there is a contrast issue there. It should just be white and not like a grey against black. And maybe if it was labeled like something like filters applied, or if you had a filter logo there just to make it much clearer, that's what it is. So, but I do like that. In the top left, where we've got the icons, so if you just hover over the icons, sorry, not top left, top right, sorry, where you've got
oh
like
yeah, this one. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, we know they're buttons, but there's no visual cue that you can click them. Now, I think most of us will know you can click them, but if it had some visual cue, like a color change, or it popped a little bit that showed us that it was an interactive element. So I
Hmm.
mentioned the idea of affordance earlier, and affordance is the principle of, if something should be clicked, make it obvious that it should be clicked,
Yeah.
and it can be clicked. So just some kind of change in the color or something to make it obvious that it can be clicked would help there as well.
There's a reason why one of the most common ways on how to make it feel like a button is just creating a hover effect, right? Because it's what
Yeah,
we used to seeing everywhere on websites, on every single app that we're doing. It kind of just makes you feel like, oh, it's something that I can touch and it's going to do something.
yeah, yeah,
The cursor
uh,
change, sure, it implicates it, but it's not clear enough.
yeah. And what I think, and one of the things that people miss a lot on these is if you hover over that filter icon again, so it says "click here to follow." That is the default tooltip text.
Yeah,
And so many people miss this. They leave it as the default, whereas that should say filters, or filter the report or something like that, or just turn it off.
like
Because
this. Yeah.
some people leave them on when they shouldn't be on, and it's a bit of a distraction. So yeah, so that's good because you've changed the tooltip text.
Hmm.
But sometimes, actually just turn the tooltip off because it's a bit of a distraction, particularly if it's obvious what it's doing. You might not need it on that filter button. If you add that hover effect, you could probably turn the tooltip off,
Yeah.
because it just becomes an extra element that's a bit of a distraction, really, or it's like, it's a bit of visual overload. So you can probably just turn those off.
Yeah. One other thing that usually you want to turn off as well is the visual headers for cards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
especially if it's not meant to be interactive with, if it's a
yeah,
visual that's not meant, because cards generally you don't really interact with them beyond looking at them. So if you've got visual icons or headers on still to the user, it's like, oh, this is going to do something, but actually it's not going to do anything, or you shouldn't be doing anything with it.
yeah, it just tells you currently no filters applied. Well, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. And it's just a distraction, so just get rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I think the layout itself. One thing that I liked about this is that the layout most of the time stayed the same, so you kind of know what to
Yeah.
expect from it. There's different chart size being used, which I'm okay with it. But the
Mm,
one thing that threw me off when going through the pages, it feels like you started with one design that you had in mind, then you went completely into more or less monochromatic. You're kind of going towards it, then you're going completely almost into the gray and black. So you're kind of losing the color eventually.
mm.
Now you have no color whatsoever. And now you go to the last page and suddenly, well, there's color everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
so it feels like it's like 5 different reports into
yeah,
one. It's not like a consistent, this okay, there are 5 different report pages, but it's all part of one report, but it feels like 5 separate reports in one report, if that makes sense.
no, no,
Because
it
they're all
makes
different
total sense
designs.
because
Yeah.
anybody who's seen organizational reports, this is what happens a lot of the time. Five different people
Mm,
have created five different pages. We
yeah,
kind of had the same idea, but everybody did a little bit of a touch on top of it, so it looks
yeah,
weird at altogether.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, overall, I think it's a very good one. I think it's just little basic pieces about the coloring itself. Just make it consistent across the board. So whether you're going in the full monochromatic scale where you're using colors, don't jump between 30 different options, right? Stay with one that works and use it throughout the report. That's the main
Mm,
thing. The
mm,
contrast for the values and everything, as much as I kind of understand what you're doing here, it needs to be visible. Especially because remember, guys, one of the things that people keep forgetting, what you see on the screen is not the same thing as everybody else sees. Every single display has different properties as well: the contrast, the hue, the brightness, saturation, and everything. As soon as some of these properties are being changed, then you have colors which are very non contrasting colors. At some point, they just become invisible.
mm.
So be very cautious about this. And there's
Yeah,
actually a lot of websites where you can just do the contrast check, where you can submit the colors and it's going to tell you what's the index of contrast.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think overall it's a good report, and congratulations in getting into the top five.
Mhm.
Now, the last one that has not the least, that has gotten itself into the top five. It's usually the tricky part about being the last one on the list, right? But it's
Yeah.
not the last. All right. So the fifth report that has gotten into the top five comes from Nina Ekpe. So congratulations, Nina. Let's open up
Mm.
the report and take a closer look at it. I mean, even from the little thumbnail that we saw as well, right? Whilst this one's opening up, I think everybody can see that it's a complete contrast to what we had previously, where everything was very dark. This was very light. This also feels kind of light, right? It feels at home in a way.
Yeah.
um, there are the same things that we talked about previously, or Nicholas would mentioned. There's no mention of what this period is, or whether it's even a period. Maybe it's some sort of a category. I just see different bars and the column size, sorry, and that's it.
Yeah. So I think so each bar is a month, I believe.
Yeah.
I would point out though that I mean, it looks like you're highlighting the lowest and highest performing month within each of those categories, but that's not overly clear. In one of the previous, I think it might have been the first one that we showed, it went, it was red for the worst performing and green for the, yeah. So it was red
Hmm.
for the worst, green for the best. So you want to probably apply some conditional formatting like that to make it much more obvious, because to users, you got to remember that the majority of your users aren't data analysts, and they'll look at that and they'll be like, oh, why are those highlighted? Is there a reason those are highlighted? Do I need to look into that? What's the reason there? It's not going to be immediately clear to them that you've highlighted the highest and the lowest. It is to us, because we do that in part in our development. We all do it, so to us, we'll know that, but your users won't. So make sure you add a visual cue that tells them that.
Absolutely. Because the other thing that they're gonna think about it, and this is what I've noticed as well when I've created a report. I've done the same mistake. Don't worry, you're not only one who did it. When you don't name these things and just highlight certain columns, what their initial thought is going to be like, okay, these are probably the only ones I'm interested in. Everything else is obsolete. It's okay, but these ones I should probably investigate. Whereas in
Mm,
reality, it's just again to highlight the min and max. Every single month is important. This is just to highlight.
yeah, yeah,
But then again, since I don't have a year slicer right away, I might be looking for it right here. But then you see there's also no year. So I'm kind of forced to look always at overall situation of everything. So
yeah,
this is one of the things that I would probably change and allow the user to switch between the different years, because the year aspect is kind of important.
yeah,
Design wise, what I liked about this is that you kind of decided to separate the report again into two different blocks and focus on those two different dimensions. I'm fine with it. And you're explaining what those dimensions are going to be. These are going to be the revenue drivers. This is going to be the discount assessment. So you're kind of telling the user what it's going to be all about. The only thing that I did not like too much about this is the size of the elements. We can see there's a label, but come on. I could read this. Maybe with a magnifying glass or, you know,
So
control
I,
zoom.
I I'm going to disagree. I'm disagreeing again. I'm all right with it. I like
Okay.
it. I think it's okay. Yeah, I think it's okay, because you do have that functionality to zoom in within the visual itself.
Or do this. Yeah.
Yeah, or do that. Yeah, and actually, this is a good example. Nina's done a good example of another UX principle, which is the law of common region, where when things are placed in the same container, you know they're related or they're associated straight away. Okay, so you've got revenue drivers, you've got discount assessment, they're in the same container, all the visuals, so we know they're related and they're going to interact with each other. Whereas often in report design, and generally it's okay, but we separate all the visuals out, and then you click one and it'll highlight or filter the one next to it, and the context is related, but it's
Hmm.
not always immediately clear. Whereas when you use common region, as in these containers, it's instantly clear that they're related. And it's the sizing of the visuals, actually, I'm okay with, but that could be because I have very large screens. Now, somebody on a laptop who's using there you go. So someone on a 14-inch screen laptop, yeah, that could be minute, that text. Whereas I've got very large screens here. I've got two of them, and it looks fine to me. So that's another point, actually, is when you build a report, if you've got nice big 32-inch screens that are 4K or 2K or something like that, it's going to look really good on your screen, and all the text is going to look good, and it's going to be scaled well. But again, on a smaller screen or a laptop monitor screen, something like that, something small, it may be unreadable. So when you come to do user testing, that's something you want to test as well. Don't just assume that everyone's going to have the same experience as you, because a lot of business users use their 14-inch laptop screens, and
Yeah.
that's where they're going to be consuming their reports. So your font size 10 may be fine on your big, nice screen, but it could be absolutely tiny on theirs.
10 font size, 125% scaling, and suddenly it feels okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Throw in the Windows Zoom tool and you're good.
Yep. No, it is one of the reasons why whenever we're developing, for example, reports for customers, it's one of the questions that we have in the questionnaire. We ask about what's going to be the most common screen size that's going to be used, whether it's going to be laptops, desktop monitors, or whatever the situation is. Just tell us so we can adapt to the situation.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same thing as if you would try to squeeze this in also on let's say a phone like a portrait view.
Mm,
It's okay. Now I have dots there.
yeah, yeah.
But like again, don't worry about the comments, guys. Right? This is just what we noticed as well from our experience from different reportings, different customers, and everything. These are just the things that we notice. So if we
Mhm.
go to engagement and retention, for this page, I know that this is becoming a very common practice to utilize the white space that you have within the donut chart. I'm okay with it, but it has one thing that you always have to follow. The card itself needs to be under the visual, and I can tell you why. Unless you do it properly and you set it under the visual, the first issue that you might come across sometimes is if it's positioned incorrectly. Like in this case, you can see I can still touch the donut chart itself. That's fine. In some other cases, like here, for example, I cannot get to it because it's actually under the card. That's one thing. The other thing, if I hover over this and the tooltips are not disabled, you can see the tooltip is actually underneath the card.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. It works very well, but you just need to be careful about these properties of the visuals. There's different layers for the visuals, and there's different elements that are being activated in different scenarios.
Mm,
Like if you would have detail labels, for example, and not the tooltip, I would be fine with this because I would be able to see it and I would can interact with it, and that's all good. But because of this, I just noticed it.
yeah.
That's one thing, and the other thing is do play around with what you create. What we said, small oversight, but for the end user, trust me, they're gonna be saying, "Oh, this is not working. This is broken," even though it's just decreased the size of one font size itself, and suddenly everything works,
Yeah.
right?
And that perception that you create, so even something as small as that, it can come across that we've been a bit sloppy in our development. Now
Yeah.
we know we haven't. It's just a very small oversight. But your users don't care about that. That you've done a small oversight, but you still spent 20, 30 hours creating this report. If
Hmm.
that small thing that they find not only can break trust in your report, but that perception follows through to the data behind the report as well. So if they feel like the report is sloppy and you've not put due care and intention into it, have you done the same with the data as well? Can I trust the data that it's accurate? If your report's not working right and that feels sloppy, can I apply the same to the data behind it as well? You give that same perception.
Absolutely. And you just, I mean, you basically just saw it in action as well, right? Everything else seems fine, but god damn it, Ivis, you decided to click on the one thing that actually breaks the thing, and suddenly this is an issue.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But it's just what's going to happen in reality as well. People are going
Absolutely.
to click on random things. They're going to see how different things interact. They're going to start to cross filter the information. And one of the reasons why I'm emphasizing on this is it's one of the reasons why it's very important to specifically define the formats for your values, because I'm guessing this breaks because it's not being forced to be a whole number or a whole percentage.
Mm,
Because as you can see, if it's two numbers, it seems completely fine. If I cross filtered information as well, even on different percentages, it seems fine. But I'm guessing that because it hasn't been forced to have zero decimal numbers, there's too many characters suddenly.
yeah.
So it's one of those things where play around with what you have available there.
Yeah.
And the same here, for example, if we hover over, you can see the percentages are fine, but on the first page, this is why you never leave on auto decimals.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about, yeah.
Gonna go on forever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the infamous 9 decimals.
Yeah. I don't know why they do that. Yeah.
It's annoying, but we've
Yeah.
all
Why
done
is
this
that the default? It's just silly. Yeah.
because you have it right here, right? You tested this,
Yeah.
oh, it seems good. Then move to the left. What is this?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, other
Um,
than that, I think it's a very good showcase of how information can be split down into different sort of dimensions and everything, but you can still group them within a block, and it just makes sense to have them there together.
yeah. A thing I'll highlight is the visitors per week by average time spent chart is confusing to me. I'm not actually sure what
This one,
it's
yeah, yeah.
showing because there's no axis labels. I don't know. Is the average time spent the Y or the X axis? I'm not sure. I'm not sure really what it's showing us because I mean, most of the time you want axis labels on. You can get away with it not usually if your x-axis is months because we all know that January,
Yeah.
February, March they're months, right? You
Or
don't
like
need a
this, yeah.
label. Yeah, you don't need a label to tell people what that is, right? But in this case, I have no idea what that's actually showing me. To be totally honest,
No,
um,
no,
I'm not
I
sure
get
how
it.
to interpret it at all. Yeah.
It's the same as even if you're looking at 100, right? 100 minutes, hours, days,
Yeah, yeah, I don't know what that.
milliseconds.
Yeah, what is that? Is it people? Is it? I don't know. Members? Not sure.
Maybe, yeah, yeah, I get it. Yeah, but yeah, it's the main thing that I would say always about these reports is, as much as we would love to think always about the overall kind of feeling of the report, the devil's in the details.
Mm,
All
yeah,
those little things is what people are going to notice, and this is why you give it to somebody else. Because remember, the biggest flaw that we ourselves have as a report developer, you've been working on this for far too long, you don't even see these things anymore. You just feel like, ah, it's fine, let's go, let's do the next one, right? Whereas
yeah,
if you give it to somebody with a fresh pair of eyes, he's going, look, what's that, why is it there? And then
yeah,
suddenly you have to rethink and be like, why is it there?
yeah.
And
And
just
something
okay.
something that's important to remember as developers is you have to accept that you are the least qualified person to test your report because you built it, right? You know where all the buttons are.
Yeah.
You know the quirks and the workarounds, etc. You know how to use it just instinctively. So you're the least qualified person to test it. So that's why, again, going back to what I was saying towards the beginning of this, is that you need to be testing it with a group of 3 to 5 people,
Hmm.
and you need to get them to be breaking it because that's proper test. Um, just one more quick thing. Just I know we need to probably move on, but one more very quick thing. If you click the filters in the top right hand corner, so I'm a sucker for filter panels, right? I love a good filter panel. And the way you can just elevate this slightly more is if you add something called a scrim. And I spoke about this in one of my very recent LinkedIn posts. And what a scrim is in design is basically it's an overlay on top of the visuals that just creates like a slightly transparent gray. So it brings that slicer panel into attention into the front because yes,
Hmm.
we can see it there, but it's also competing with every other element on the page right now. Whereas
Yeah.
if you put a scrim over it and you kind of you dim the visuals behind it, it becomes the point of focus then. And like I say, if you want to know more about scrims, then it's my second most recent post on LinkedIn. If you want to check that out, I think you might have done it there actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah. There you go. So you've got like that sort of greeny blue dimming over the top of it. Yeah, so that's a scrim. That's what they're called. Yeah,
So see, it's one of the kind of trying to figure out what works, because from my experience, I can tell you, screwing is what I usually do by default, because what I don't like the users to do is to interact with both of them at the same time. It's either the
mm,
filter panel or the visuals. Pick one, not the
yeah,
both at the same time.
yeah.
But there are cases where the customer is going to be like, "But I want to do the same thing at the same time." And you're just like, "Fine, I'll figure something out." So it's up to them at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I think we've gone through all of them. So
Nice.
one thing that I'm going to quickly do is quickly stop sharing the screen, because I don't want to look like a complete dum dum when I choose the wrong report, and I want to showcase that this is going to be the winner, right? So quickly finding the winner, making sure it's the right one. Got it. Pushing it live. So the winner for this month's challenge is magically appear. No. Yes. Basim Chebi. Congratulations, man. So yeah, in our opinion, your report was the best report in this month's particular challenge. It had a very nice little features. Like Nicholas has all said, the overall feeling of the report, it didn't feel like a Power BI report, which is one of the things that you try to kind of achieve. Funny enough, with Power BI. But yeah,
Yeah.
very very well made, and definitely congratulations on creating such a report.
Yeah. I
For the rest of you, don't get discouraged.
yeah.
Just the fact that you didn't win doesn't mean that your report wasn't good, or even if you didn't get into the top five, it doesn't mean that your report was bad. It's just that these were the selected ones, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. And
more encouragement.
all the entries were good. Lots of like really good features. Should all be proud of yourselves. But yeah, with Bessums, it was like when I opened it, I was like, yeah, I was like, oh, am I actually in Power BI here? And I like, a lot of the features were really good. It was well thought out, well laid out, and the analytics was good. So yeah, so congrats.
Yeah. And one last thing that before we move on is we wanted to also to give a quick shout out to Alexander Andrade for the design of the report. So from ZoomCharts team, we felt that this design was very well maintained. Unfortunately, just there are a few other things that didn't make the cut, but the design aspect, definitely a shout out for you.
Nice.
What else? I don't know. Any last words from you for the community?
Well, I suppose to you guys at ZoomCharts, thanks for having me on. I hope that people of watching have liked my my UX principles that I've been throwing out there. For anyone that wants to learn more about those kind of things, there's a website called the Laws of UX that goes into more of this stuff, and it's something that and there's books about it as well, and it's really helped me develop my design skills around UI and UX in Power BI and applying those as well. So I would recommend looking into that website. Yeah.
Well, there you go, guys. And I know from my side, I can definitely say it was an honor having you here. It was great having you because what I like about these sessions is when you have somebody with a different opinion on things, because it's kind of okay to always talk about the same thing, right? When we disagree on things, is I think it showcases to the users as well very well that in reality nothing is as simple as it seems. One
Mm,
person might like it, the other one's gonna be like, I know about that one.
mm.
So always communicate to the actual end users, try to get as much information from them to make the report feel like home for them. So
Yeah.
they are actually
Agree.
adapting it and using it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Good advice.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone else for joining us today. Hope it was interesting and you managed to learn something new and useful, most importantly, right? Other than that, I'll see you in the next workshop.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, everyone. Bye.